Hey guys, today we've got a second-hand trimmer that I bought for $20 from Facebook Marketplace. I've been told that it hasn't been started for 1.5 years and apparently it's still supposed to be in a working condition. Today we're going to find out whether it was a good buy or not and what it's going to take to get it started.
Since the earliest lawns for centuries, humans have maintained their gardens and lawns using manual hand tools. These tools evolved, yet they all adhered to the same principle as garden shears. Thankfully, in 1972, a new invention was born that would forever change this. The weed eater, now known as the weed trimmer, string trimmer, weed whip, or whipper snipper. Like any invention, this one required inspiration, and the story behind the weed eater is quite interesting. The inventor was a businessman from Texas named George Ballas. It all began when one of George's employees was bitten by a snake while cutting grass with grass-cutting shears. This incident prompted George to consider that there should be a better way to cut the grass. In 1972, his inspiration struck when he observed the bristles that cleaned his car's side. In a flash of insight, he raced home, grabbed an empty popcorn can and fishing line, drilled holes in the can, and attached fishing lines through them. When he affixed it to the edger, he found that it cut grass perfectly. Interestingly enough, the very first weed eater used fishing line as grass-cutting string, and the original weed eater was manufactured by a company called Ballas under the brand name Weed Eater. The first model, the Clippy, was an electric-powered machine. Each used fishing line as string. Remarkably, the price for each weed eater was comparable to what you can expect to pay for an electric weed eater today. It didn't take long for a gas-powered model of the weed eater to appear on the market. The early model of the gas-powered weed eater was known as the Weedy. Surprisingly, it wasn't much different from the ones we use today. In fact, the design has hardly changed at all. The original gas-powered weed eater was more expensive than most weed eaters today. The Clippy was priced at $299.95 and boasted a 3-horsepower engine.
Okay, the very first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to have a visual inspection just to make sure that there's no obvious defects on the trimmer that will require immediate attention. So far I haven't found anything. The only thing I found, but it's not a defect, that protective cover is a bit loose, but other than that it all seems to be fairly good to me. I don't see any obvious damage. I can see that the carburettor is a little bit it's a little bit dirty. It looks like one of the gaskets might have leaked, but again, it also could be because it's been in storage for a very long time. But very first thing that I want to do is I want to give it a bit of the clean, and after that we're gonna move to the next step. So for the cleaning, we're going to use dishwashing fluid, a microfiber towel, and a detailing brush. The main aim for me is to clean as much dirt as possible and make sure that that dirt is not covering any cracks or other damages. But also I like working with clean parts, so it's gonna give me some satisfaction as well. So I'm gonna disassemble that part first. Just easy to clean it when it's disassembled. plastic nut is quite stuck. Oh, I'm gonna use some tools to help me out with that. You don't need to apply much force, just a little bit will be fine. Okay, so since it hasn't been started for, well, if that's the truth, for 1.5 years, I definitely want to replace the fuel. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with removing the fuel tank. The fuel tank normally has a little fuel filter inside, so I wanna get the fuel filter out and inspect it. Also want to inspect those hoses, because those fuel lines, once they crack, the carburettor sucks in air and the motor wouldn't start. So we'll start from that and see what we're gonna find out there. So I'll remove the air filter box first. Okay, it seems to be reasonably clean. Yeah, we'll still clean it, but yeah, it is a bit dirty. So now disconnect the lines. Old fuel smells horrible, that's for sure. Let's drain the old fuel. Well, you can see that there is something inside of the tank. It's not a very good sign. That might be the filter, but that's definitely not a filter. Okay, now we're gonna remove the fuel tank. Only 3 bolts that are holding the tank in place. Let's clean the outside of the tank and then open it up and see what's happening inside. Okay, so we cleaned the outside of the fuel tank. So we just need to look very carefully whether there's any cracks in those lines. So let's open it up. Let's take that out. Yeah, you can see it's very dirty inside. Very dirty. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pull those fuel lines out, including the filter, and we're gonna give it a good clean. Then we're gonna inspect the filter to see whether we can reuse it, because for some reason I have big doubts that we'll be able to reuse it. Okay, let's pull those lines out. Fuel line seems to be alright to me, but I'll have a look. There's one place over here that to me looks a bit suspicious, but it might be just a little dent on the tube. I'll install it back, because this is the return, so it shouldn't be a problem. The supply is the one, is the critical one. It can't have any cracks, but we'll see. Maybe it's not a crack. Yeah guys, I inspected this line. It doesn't seem to have any visible cracks at this stage. Okay, the supply one might be a bit more difficult to get out. I'm gonna pull it out a bit, and then we need to grab that filter from inside and pull it from inside. It's a bit more tricky. Yeah, you can see there's a chunk of something over there. Okay, I caught it. Yeah, I think the filter will need to be replaced regardless. Okay, just pull it out first. Yeah, there's a lot of dirt. Yeah, the filter will need to be replaced. The fuel line doesn't seem to have any cracks, so we'll try to reuse it and see whether it's feasible. But yeah, I'll definitely replacing the filter. So on the left we see the old fuel filter, and on the right hand side we can see the brand new one. The good thing that I found out about this filter is that the filter has very little operation. You can see there's a bit of the wear on this edge. So what normally happens is that those filters when you use your trimmer, those filters, they move everywhere in the fuel tank, and because of that the surface contact wears out. But to me that means that such a little wear means that's either that filter was replaced not that long time ago, or that trimmer hasn't been used much, and the seller was honest about it. So now we're gonna wash the fuel tank. The easiest way is just to soak the internals in the dishwashing fluid for a couple of minutes, and after that just rinse it with water, and that should do the trick. While we are waiting for the fuel tank to be soaked, let's clean the carburetor. I would expect the carburetor to be very dirty, given that there is a stale fuel that is over 2 years old. So let's find out how dirty it is. And now let's remove the air box very gently without dropping any of the gaskets. Okay. I'll disconnect. Yeah, I'll need to disconnect that throttle cable. We'll just need to squeeze those little lips. See, the carburetor is very dirty and there's still some fuel inside. This is the gasket. I'll just leave it like this for now. Okay guys, I think this whipper snipper should only have one problem, and that's fuel supply. And that's primarily because it hasn't been used for a long time, and the fuel is stale. So we're gonna also clean the carburetor and ensure there's no contamination inside. So we'll start with we'll clean the outside of the carburetor first. To clean the carburetor, I'm gonna use throttle body and air intake cleaner. I'm not sponsored by this company. It's the only can that was left in the shop. So feel free to use any carburetor cleaner, but make sure it doesn't have solvents that might damage the plastic and rubber components. So we're gonna spray and let it soak. And then we will use compressed air to dry the outside of the carburetor. Okay, after we clean outside of the carburetor, now we can start disassembling it. So to disassemble a carburetor, one thing that you have to have is a good quality screwdriver. You don't want to damage any of those bolts, because if you do, you're gonna create another problem for yourself. Trust me, I'm saying this because I've destroyed quite a few carburetors in the past. I would also suggest to use a normal screwdriver, not electrical one, when you're disassembling carburetors. Main reason is when you're using hand tools, when you're using a screwdriver, you can feel where what bolt is doing. If you use electrical tool, you can't feel it, and it's easier to strip a thread or break something. Okay, so we're gonna remove those 4 bolts. So what we're removing now is the primer bulb, and primer bulb primes the carburetor before starting, and it just saves you time starting a trimmer. So what we want to look for here is cracks in the housing and any abnormalities. I can't see anything here. To me it's all looking good. Okay, so this is a membrane. You want to be really careful removing that membrane. Don't want to break it. Yeah, I don't see it. Yeah, it looks relatively clean to me. Okay, and this gasket is basically your valves. It works as a valve and a pump. So need to be careful with that. And this one is the spacer gasket. And this is the throttle, which I also want to remove. But before that, we won't be able to remove it without undoing that bolt, because the throttle is not allowing us to get access to this bolt. And actually it's missing a bolt, so someone might have tried to remove it in the past and didn't do, or the bolt got lost. Okay, so now we're gonna clean each part of it and put it back together. So let's clean this one first. You want to make sure that you spray in all the holes and channels and they get cleaned. Same deal here, we're just gonna spray through all the holes to make sure that all the channels are clean. Now we'll just gently wipe all those gaskets and membranes to make sure that you don't damage them. I would try to stay away from putting any solvents or cleaners on that. Most of the cleaners for the carburetors say that they're harmless towards the rubber components, but you never know. Now once the carburetor is supposed to be clean, we're gonna assemble it back together. We want to make sure that we assemble it in the same order as we disassemble it. So we'll put the spacer first, then we'll and this carburetor in particular is very helpful because it has guiding pins, and those guiding pins help you to see how the gasket is aligned, and there's only one way it can be installed, because if you install it other way around, it's very obvious that it's not meant to be installed like that. So that's quite handy. You also want to make sure that this membrane doesn't have any cracks, because if it does, it's not gonna send the fuel to the chamber. Okay, so we're gonna install it like that, and the priming mechanism. And the bolts. Same situation here. I would not recommend or suggest using electrical tools to assemble the carburetor, just because you want to feel how the bolts going in, to make sure there's no problem with the thread doesn't catch, and it's just so much easier to pick up any of those issues at the very early stage by hand, because once you're using electrical, you basically give up a lot of control to the electrical tool, and you don't feel as much, and in my experience that's when mistakes normally happen. So let's now install the throttle. Okay, and let's adjust the opening of the throttle. So that's basically the idle control. If you have it closed all the way, the trimmer is not going to have any idle speed. So what we're basically doing, we are opening the throttle for the trimmer to have enough air fuel mixture so that it can idle without you manually intervening with that. Okay. Well, that's done. Let's clean the air box. We'll just use the throttle cleaner as well and just spray. It's relatively clean. I just want to make sure that all the residue is going to be gone. You'll also open the choke. Now we'll just use compressed air to dry. After we clean the air filter box, now we can install everything back. Now we're gonna install the throttle. Just put it in. Now I just need to connect the throttle cable to the carburetor throttle, which can be challenging sometimes. Okay, now it's time to clean the air filter. Okay, so we've got a filter. We're gonna use some dishwashing fluid again, just to soak a little bit. Again, the reason why I like using dishwashing fluid is because it's strong enough to remove even sometimes grease and oil, but it's not strong enough to damage any delicate parts. Okay, and now we're just gonna rinse it with water. So it's much cleaner now, you can see that. I don't know if it's visible on the camera, but before that it had a lot of dirt. But we'll clean it again with a dishwashing fluid. Make sure that you rub it properly. And also want to be as gentle as possible so that I don't break the filter. Okay. Okay guys, after we wash the filter, we're just gonna dry it. The quickest way for me to dry it is to use compressed air. So let's do that. So once the filter is dry, we're just going to put a little drop of the oil . And just make sure that this oil is distributed. That is going to extend the life of the filter and your engine, because that oil is going to trap all the dust particles and not going to let it through the filter. I just put a little bit more. You want to make sure that the filter is not oversaturated with oil. If it is, you'll notice that your engine is not going to work exactly the same. Your engine is going to be working as it doesn't have enough air, and it's going to be running too rich. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, let's continue assembly. So we're putting the filter that is nice, clean and fresh, and then we're putting the filter housing. Here we go. And now it's time to finish with the fuel tank. Okay, that's been over 20 minutes, and 20 minutes of soaking. So I just close it and give it a good shake. We can see that this piece of gunk disappeared, but this one is still there. So let's try to rinse it with water and see whether it's going to make any difference. Okay, that piece is still there. What I'll do is I'm gonna put a few bolts and nuts in there, and then we're gonna give it another good shake. I'm gonna take a few bolts and nuts, small enough to go in, I'm going to take a few of these bolts. So I'll put those nuts first. We'll put a bit more, the more the merrier. Well, it's getting better, but still some residue left. You see that the only thing that is left there is actually staining of the plastic. But to me it looks clean enough. Okay, wonderful. Let's just air blast it. Make sure that there's as much water, we can get as much water out of it as possible. Okay, so now the fuel tank is clean and we can install the fuel lines back and actually install a new filter as well. So let's start with fuel line supply. So this is supply fuel line. So this one is supply is coming through this hole. So we're going to use this little hook to help us to guide the wire through. And as we are pulling, we also want to help with a screwdriver to guide that end of the line. If that doesn't work, like in my end, you want to cut a slice of the hose, just one of the edges. Just like that. Just like that. Perfect. And I'm going to use pliers to help me to pull it. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to remove that. We're going to cut that piece off. So once we install a new filter, we want to put the spring so that it doesn't come off. So you just want to give it a bit of the pull to make sure it's all in place. Then you can put it back. Okay, and the supply line is installed. Let's install the return one. So with the return one we'll do the same. We'll actually cut one of the ends right away so that it's easier for the line to penetrate through the hole. We'll just use a screwdriver to do the hole first. So that's all. Okay, great. So now we'll just put this hole I can just take our time and screw that in. Okay, wonderful. Now let's install the cap back. Okay, let's install the fuel tank back. And this is supply. Now it's time to inspect the spark plug. Spark plug looks fairly brand new. Yeah, the spark plug is actually brand new. It's NJK. The only thing is that let's check the gap. It should be 0.7 mil. It's a bit tight. Okay, now it's 0.7. Okay, let's install it back. You can see that that spark plug has barely been used. So I want to mix the fuel 50:1, which means that I need to fill up petrol up until that point, and then that's how much two-stroke oil I need to put in. Let's put the fuel first. After we've added some oil, we're just gonna shake it a bit to make sure that the oil is mixed with fuel. And now we're ready to fill it up. Okay guys, now it's super exciting time. We're basically gonna find out whether all the work that we've done brings any results or not. Let's prime the carburettor first, and I can see that it is priming, which is great, which is a small win already. So according to the instructions, we need to prime it 10 times when it's cold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you need to put it in choke position. Squeeze trigger and pull start 4 times. Woohoo! It's working! Great result. I actually didn't expect it to work from first start, but it's working great. That's exactly what you want to see after you put some work into something. You want to see the result, and that's exactly what I wanted to see. Great. I'm super happy. That was relatively easy. I didn't expect it to work from the first start, but it did, which is amazing. So now I'm going to install the trimmer head and the guard. So that trimmer, it came with a fixed line head. They're super annoying because you always need to cut pieces of line. Those pieces need to be exactly the same size. And after that, every time when your line breaks, you need to stop and reload the head with a new line, which sometimes might take 3 to 5 minutes, and it's quite annoying given that if you have a big area to trim, you want it to be as efficient as possible and as quick as possible as well. So I actually have an old automatic bump feed head for that trimmer, which I'm pretty sure is gonna fit. So we're gonna replace that. Alrighty, so this is an old bump feed head for the trimmer. I'm just gonna give it a bit of a clean and reload it with a line, and then we're gonna install that baby. Before starting cleaning, I'm just gonna take it apart. Same deal, we're gonna use some dishwasher fluid and we'll soak everything in it. We're gonna let it soak for a couple of minutes. After it's soaked for a couple of minutes, we're gonna use some detailing brush and give it a good brush. I'm gonna go and give it a quick rinse. Now we're gonna use the compressed air to dry the parts that we just cleaned. Okay, let's install that. So that goes in here. Okay, let's clean the guard. And let's dry it as well. Okay, let's install the guard. Nice and clean guard. And let's reload the trimming line. I want to make sure that it's all aligned. Okay, so the trimmer is ready. We're gonna go and start it up and let it idle for 5-10 minutes. Okay, let's prime 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's been I think around 8-10 minutes. Let's see if she's still running and whether she's running fine. Yes, she's running. Well, that's another success. Now I'm going to use this trimmer for probably around 15-20 minutes non-stop. I need to trim an area of my yard, and I want to just make sure that it doesn't bog at full throttle and it maintains the RPMs when the throttle is fully open. So yeah, let's give it another test. Well, that was fun. Thank you very much for being part of it. I actually super happy with the result. thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. There's more videos to come. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video.